Crimson Rivers, The Break. Sybil likes to cut holes in her shirts and put paper clips through them because she thinks it gives her flair, which Lily isn't against per se. It's not that she protests individuality and style. No, of course not. But she does take issue with Sybil doing things that's going to end with her crying later. How are you even hiding that from Dumbledore? Lily asks as she tugs on the line of clips. She's reaching for a cigarette with her hand, which Sybil looks at pointedly. Oh, this isn't nearly as obvious. I have a place to hide these. Sybil squints at her, and Lily reaches up to scoop her arm under her chest, fumbling for the pack of cigarettes before she tucks it underneath. When she lets go, the paper disappears beneath. Sybil looks down at her own chest, frowning, then looks back up with a thoughtful look on her face. Will you... No, I will not use my tits to hide things for you, Lily cuts in, tugging the pack out so she can scoop the lighter from it, cigarette trapped between her lips. Not all of us were blessed with... Sybil drops her gaze and bites her lip. Goodness, Lily. Blessed? Lily mutters. You think back pain, uncomfortable fitting clothes, and common heat rashes is blessed? No, you're right, that's awful. Still, you have extra hiding spots, and also, it sure is a blessing to look at them, Sybil says with a dreamy sigh, then promptly folds over and rests her head on Lily's chest with a happy hum. Lily quickly grabs her cigarette so it won't catch Sybil's hair on fire, her free hand cupping Sybil's head as she grumbles. Oi, watch it. I'm smoking, Sybil. Yeah, I know your routine by now. Same way Wren, Miranda, and Ember know. Sybil tells her with a snort. She lifts her head and shifts across the grass, throwing her leg over Lily's lap and leaning up to pluck the cigarette from Lily's mouth, turning it to put it in her own. Inhaling, her cheeks hollow out, and she parts her lips to let the smoke escape slowly. Let Lily Evans fuck you, then watch her chain smoke like she's trying to set her lungs on fire. Well, if you know, then what makes you think I'm willing to share? Lily reaches out to take her cigarette back, raising her eyebrows. These aren't easy to come by, let me tell you. And yet I've never seen you without them after we fuck. Wren, Ember, and Miranda all the same. Stop talking to the other women. I fuck. It's weird. Sybil grins. Stop fucking so many women. Can't do that. You'd all be so disappointed, Lily teases, then inhales and tips her head back to watch the smoke billow up from her lips. Her eyes flutter shut for a brief moment. That we would, Sybil agrees with a chuckle. Besides, it's not like the Phoenix has enough room to keep us unaware of it. Fuck, Lily, we all eat meals together. Wren is literally my best friend. What did you expect to happen? Lily doesn't bother responding to that. If she's honest, she doesn't really give a shit. You never answered me. Reaching out with her free hand, she tugs on the paper clip. How are you getting those past Dumbledore? I stole them from his office, Sybil says. If he acknowledges them, then he has to acknowledge that someone managed to break into his office. You broke into his office? Lily asks sharply, sitting up so quickly that Sybil nearly drops out of her lap. Yeah, I did, Sybil admits, looking smug. Difficult to do, if I'm honest, but worth it for the paper clips. Of course, he'll probably just have someone confiscate them, and I'll end up sobbing again, but, it's worth it. They look lovely, Lily feels compelled to point out, if only to make Sybil happier. Sybil brightens instantly. How did you do it? Break into his office, I mean. Wouldn't you like to know? Trelawney? Evans? Sybil teases, but Lily stares at her, staring her down, and Sybil's smile fades. She swallows. I snuck out after curfew. Remember that alarm that went off in the Great Hall last night? That was me. Did you look at anything else? Lily asks, and Sybil hesitates, biting her lip. Lily nods. You did. Tell me. Sybil frowns. Lily, tell me, Lily repeats sternly. Sybil grimaces, then huffs and scoots out of Lily's lap, drawing her legs up to her chest, where she wraps her arms around her knees. It wasn't much, all right? I didn't want to risk too much, so I took a look at the most recent file. What is it? Lily grits out. The Pruitts, Sybil murmurs. Fabian and Gideon, they're dead. Killed on orders from Riddle. Lily takes a deep breath, then slowly lets it out. Dorcas? Still alive, Sybil says. Well, Lily replies, and that's as far as she gets. Neither of them speak for a long time. Lily keeps smoking, ignoring the faint tremble of her fingers as she looks up at the treetops above them. It's a nice meadow, because Lily likes a decent setting to fuck in, and the inside of the Phoenix leaves much to be desired. A whole lot of gray, mostly. An underground bunker called the Phoenix should be a bit less drab in her opinion, but this has been her reality for the last 5 years. Metal walls and too many rules. Not much more than a prison, really, if you sit down and think about it, and Lily sits down and thinks about it a lot. The Order, those living in the Phoenix, consists of a lot of good people, at least. Most of them have been living this way their whole lives, unaware of the world outside. When you haven't had a taste of fresh air, you don't feel like you're suffocating underground, Lily has learned. She remembers the look on Sybil's face the first time Lily coaxed her outside with honey-coated words and heated promises and her soft touches. Lily, who has had a taste of fresh air, constantly feels like she's suffocating inside the Phoenix. She feels trapped more often than she doesn't. It makes her itchy. Evans? Comes a call from Kingsley through the radio. Fuck's sake, Lily snaps, sucking down the last bit of her cigarette before stubbing it out and diving for the radio with a scowl. King, I've had one smoke. Not my problem, Red, Kingsley responds in amusement. I'm supposed to be retrieving you from your room. What? Why? You have 2 minutes. Shit, Lily blurts out, launching hastily to her feet as Sybil looks up at her with wide eyes. Lily holds her hand out, wiggling her fingers. Come on, Sybil, time to go. Sybil looks fit for crying. Lily, if they find out... They won't find out, Lily insists. Well, they won't if you get a move on. Groaning, Sybil takes Lily's hand and lets her tug her to her feet, complaining under her breath as Lily snatches her into a run. She's grumbling breathlessly about how she lets pretty, mysterious girls get her into trouble, as if she's not fully capable of getting into trouble on her own. She broke into Dumbledore's office. Really? She's Lily's favorite of all the women she's been with for that alone. Lily admittedly enjoys the thrill of running to get back into the Phoenix, especially pushing a time limit. The severe lack of excitement in her life in the last 5 years makes it impossible not to enjoy this, honestly. She's grinning by the time she comes tumbling out of the hatch through the air vent in her room, Sybil right behind her. First, Lily slots the vent cover back into place. Then she dives for her pillow to dig into the pillowcase and find the small, near-invisible tear that she pushes her pack of cigarettes into. She smooths her pillow out, then sits down and grabs Sybil's wrist to drag her close in between her legs. Sybil looks startled, but she melts the moment Lily pulls her into a kiss. Right on time, there's a knock on the door, only a brief warning before it swings open. Lily and Sybil break apart to stare at Kingsley, Poppy, and Bones. And what if we were naked? Lily declares immediately, glaring out at them. Kingsley looks amused, but he turns away at the same time that an exasperated Poppy Pomfrey and the scowling Edgar Bones do. Bones would be scowling, though. Lily used to have a thing with his sister, Amelia, which didn't end well, so seeing her with Sybil likely irritates him. Miss Evans, your recreational time is set between 9 and 11 a.m., Poppy says with a sigh. Miss Pomfrey, 2 hours simply aren't enough for all the recreational things I get up to, Lily replies, smiling at Sybil, who chokes on a laugh that she pretends is a cough. Bones scoffs and mutters, If you're done working your way through half the Phoenix... I wasn't actually, Lily cuts in, but I've made quite the progress. Don't sound so bitter, Bones. I'd give you advice on how to satisfy a woman if you need it, and I'm a reliable source. Just ask your sister. All right, Kingsley says smoothly, catching Bones when he starts to whip around. He holds him straight and looks over at Lily like, Can you please behave? Sybil, If you would return to your room, please. Sure thing, King, Sybil replies eagerly, beaming at him. Kingsley's smile turns gentle and warm as Sybil passes him. She has her arms wrapped around herself, blocking the paper clip on her shirt as she wastes no time in beating a hasty retreat. Kingsley watches her go for a moment, and Lily is quite sure that he did see the clips, but he says nothing as he turns to focus on her again. Follow us, Kingsley murmurs. Lily heaves a sigh, as if she's not burning with curiosity at the moment. Yeah, all right, where are we going? No one answers her as they lead her away, and she crosses her arms as they head through the compound. Curiously, they're not leading her towards the infirmary, where she works the mid-shift from 3 p.m. to 1 a.m., replacing Arthur Weasley, who works from 4 a.m. to 3 p.m. They're both on call from 1 a.m. to 4 a.m., and so are those that work on the shifts with them. Assistants mostly, because Arthur and Lily are two of the few healers the Phoenix has. There's Poppy, the leader of the infirmary, but she's also a field medic and has other responsibilities as well. Lily's agitation with not being told anything melts away into genuine trepidation when she realizes that they're leading her to Dumbledore's office. She drops her arms and stands up straighter, sharing a brief look with Kingsley, who holds her gaze until he reaches the door. He knocks 3 times with the heavy gargoyle-shaped knocker, and they all wait for a calm response granting them entry before they go in. Immediately, Lily's eyes find the screen that's on the side wall. She only gets to watch the games while in the infirmary, because there's a screen there for the patients, which would usually be playing old films, but the only thing broadcasting on any screen during the games are the games. On the screen are James Potter and Regulus Black. They're getting ready to leave the cave they settled into the previous night, neither of them speaking or looking at each other. Miss Evans, Dumbledore greets, dragging Lily's attention to him. Thank you for joining me. Have a seat. We interrupted her with Sybil Trelawney, Bones announces, sounding as if he's relishing in doing so. Ah, Dumbledore says, then hums. Yes, thank you, Mr. Bones. I'd ask that you, Mr. Shacklebolt, and Miss Pomfrey leave Miss Evans and I alone. Lily struggles not to fidget as the others file out, shutting the door behind them as they go. She's never been alone with Dumbledore, not even when she first arrived 5 years ago. He did visit her in the infirmary while she was healing, but there were people in the beds, so they weren't technically alone. Albus Dumbledore is an older man, much older, with a long white beard and long white hair, and he wears half-moon glasses perched on his crooked nose. He's a man admired by many, calm and steady when addressing his people, even kind when requiring order within the order. As the leader, he's the one everybody looks to for anything, and he's the one everyone respects and believes in. He holds the promise of one day winning the war for freedom, or so it's said. So far, Lily hasn't seen much of this so-called war. Whatever war is taking place, it's fairly damn quiet. Dumbledore has been in power a long time, from what Lily knows, around 50 years at the very least, and he's pushing 80 at 74. It shows, not because of his hair, or because of his wrinkled, withered hands, or the aged softness of his voice. No, it's the gleam of knowledge in his eyes. They're wise. This is a man who knows things, who knows more than anyone else, who knows what no one has dared to begin to think about. Knowledge like that, it's dangerous. It's deadly. What do you think? Dumbledore murmurs, turning slightly to incline his head towards the screen. Lily flicks her gaze to it. Regulus Black is crouched down beside the pond, refilling his water. James Potter is watching him from a few steps away, hatchet in hand. They're both still not speaking, and they've healed really well. All visible wounds, just thin lines that likely won't even scar. I'm not sure what you mean, Lily admits, ripping her gaze away to focus on Dumbledore again. Dumbledore is silent for a beat. Then he says, Do you have an opinion on who will win? Lily frowns, her eyebrows tugging together as she stares at him. One thing she's always appreciated about the Order is the way the games are treated. They're seen as barbaric and utterly immoral, something that needs to be stopped at all costs, and not a form of entertainment to be speculated about. No one's asked her for her opinion on the games in 5 years, which she actually likes. So the fact that he is now makes her uncomfortable, honestly. Lily mumbles, clearing her throat. He keeps waiting, so she actually thinks about it, and it doesn't take her very long to form her honest answer. Regulus Black. Regulus Black, Dumbledore says softly, tapping his finger to the desk as he looks at the screen. Why? Why do I think he'll win? Yes. Lily glances at the screen again, still frowning. Well, he's undeniably skilled and willing to do what it takes to survive. He's smart, and he has James Potter with him, who is also a strong fighter and incredibly smart. Why not James Potter? Dumbledore asks, looking at her, and Lily blinks. Why don't you think he will win? Lily opens and closes her mouth, because she doesn't know. She doesn't have an answer. Love, Dumbledore murmurs. It's because of love. Even unconsciously, love has its influence, Miss Evans. I don't understand, Lily admits, which frustrates her. She doesn't like feeling stupid, or out of the loop. Dumbledore's beard twitches with a smile. Some would say that sacrifice is the strongest form of love. Do you agree? Against her will, Lily's mind turns to Remus. It hurts to think about him, as always, and a lump forms in her throat when she remembers his sacrifice. Him for her. His capture for her freedom. And here she is, locked away in an underground bunker while doing nothing with what he sacrificed himself for. They caught him, and they killed him for his crimes. Her crimes too. But she got away. He made sure she did, and she sometimes wonders for what? For this? He's dead, and she's just sitting here, wasting the life he granted her. Yes, I agree, Lily rasps. James Potter has made his feelings for Regulus Black very clear, Dumbledore announces calmly. So that begs the question, one most don't dare to ask themselves. If, at the end, it is just them, who will win? But you have your answer before you even ask, don't you? Regulus Black will win, because James Potter will ensure it. Why? Love, Lily whispers. Sacrifice. And you knew this before you even thought to work out why you knew it, Dumbledore says. We all know it, because to be human is to know love. That is how strong love is. It causes a sense of faith, hope. He holds her gaze. Power. Lily swallows. So, Regulus Black will win because of love? Yes, Dumbledore confirms simply. Do you want to know the most devastating thing in this world? The most destructive thing? It's not fear, it's not war. It's not pain or loss or fury. It's not even death. Then what is it? It's love. Love, Lily repeats quietly. Dumbledore hums. The most powerful thing in this world is love. He glances back at the screen. People will kill for it. People will die for it. But most importantly, people will fight for it. Love is a dangerous, dangerous weapon if one knows how to wield it. And you do, I'm guessing? Lily declares boldly. I do, Dumbledore agrees, without shame, focusing back on her again, and something passes in his eyes like a shadow that sends a chill down her spine. Love is how I will win a war. Lily presses her lips into a thin line. How do you plan to do that exactly? You let me worry about that, Dumbledore replies without batting an eye. He turns and gently threads his hands together on the desk, focusing on her. Do you know why I called you here today, Miss Evans? No, Lily grits out. Because you don't love anything, Dumbledore says, and she briefly stops breathing. Everything you loved was taken from you. Your mother, father, sister, and best friend were all killed. You drift between your lovers here, but none of them matter to you, not really. You have friends here, but you don't let yourself be close to them, not genuinely. 5 years, and you've refrained from forming one meaningful connection here, which I must assume is a conscious choice you've made. You love nothing, because you've decided not to. Lily feels his words like a tiny slice into her skin, each one cutting deeper and deeper. She remained stiff in her seat, her whole body cold, and a gaping emptiness in her chest. The reminder of her family, what they suffered because she got away, will forever set her heart on fire. Mom, Dad, Petunia, they suffered for her crimes, and sometimes she wonders how she lived with that knowledge every day. Love gives us purpose, Dumbledore murmurs, never breaking her gaze. It feels like he's looking through her, right down to her fucking soul. It gives us all purpose, but without love, what is your purpose? I don't know, Lily croaks. In this war, love is a weapon that will be wielded by all sides. Do you know how important it is to have soldiers that are immune? Dumbledore asks. To love? Lily asks sharply. To the destructive nature of love. I can win a war with that, and I can just as easily lose it because of that. So those that are unaffected by it are invaluable to me. Dumbledore inclines his head towards her. You have nothing. No one to care about, no one to love, and no one to lose. Lily works her jaw, balling her fists in her lap as she blinks harshly to try escaping the way her eyes sting. Dumbledore doesn't apologize, and she doesn't expect him to. What do you want from me? Nothing you're not willing to give, Dumbledore informs her, leaning back in his chair. I want to start training you to be a field medic. It will be some time yet before you find yourself in the field, because we have some time yet before the war makes itself known. It's coming, Miss Evans, and when it does, I want you to be fighting in the front lines. Does that entice you? Yes, Lily says instantly, almost gasping the words out in pure relief, because finally, she won't be wasting Remus's sacrifice or the loss of her family. I'll do it. I want to do it. Dumbledore's eyes twinkle. Yes, I thought you might respond like this, if for no other reason than because you're tired of escaping through the vents to go outside. Lily freezes, feeling a sense of dread crawl through her. He knows. He knows that she's been going to the surface and how she's been getting out. She could be put in solidarity for that. I believe that will be all for now, Miss Evans. We'll begin with you soon, Dumbledore says. You're excused. Lily's never left a room so fast in her life. The games are a delicate balance. Sirius has always known that from the moment he became a mentor, because having an insight to what goes on behind the scenes taught him that. Most people assume it's like a machine made of steel, completely indestructible, with no broken parts. In all actuality, it's a web carefully weaved, made of gossamer material that could so easily fall apart. But that's the thing. You don't want it to fall apart, because if it does, people die. 11 left now, Frank says, watching Irene and Matthias check the traps outside of the cave they're at with a furrow in his brow. They're his tributes, so of course he's concerned about any and all moves that they make. And it's only day 4, Emmeline murmurs, shaking her head. Juniper is still sleeping in the ground, and okay, Sirius has to ask at this point. Did you teach Juniper to dig holes and hide in them? Sirius blurts out, because he's genuinely curious. Emmeline glances over at him, arching an eyebrow. Actually, she came up with it on her own. Evan... She halts, her throat bobbing, and Sirius's heart gives a pang because he doesn't doubt Evan's death hit her hard too. In fact, Evan's death seems to have hit a lot of people hard, including Hallows, shockingly enough. Well, he used to say something about climbing. No one ever thinks to look up, he always said. And one day, Juniper made the comment that no one ever thinks to look down either. Suppose she was right in the end. Frank says gently. Yeah, I know, Emmeline murmurs, despite the fact that Frank hasn't said anything. He doesn't have to. They all say the same things every year when they lose their tributes. She looks at Sirius steadily. I want to say that what your brother did for him was appreciated. Stupid, yes, but it meant a lot to me, and I know I'm not the only one. Sirius just nods, because he can't really say anything else. She's not thanking him, really, but she knows as much as he does how important it is to say these things to each other. When things really matter, Leaving them unsaid in the moment often means they'll go unspoken forever. Because there's always something else that happens next. "How are mine doing?" Marlene asks, walking over with a glass in hand, which Sirius side-eyes in vague concern. "Vanity's up and working on the bridge with Peter," Frank informs her, "and Hodge has set out with the Death Eaters. They're out for blood, predictably." "Your blood," Emmeline mutters, nudging Sirius with her elbow. She grimaces apologetically when he shoots her a glare. "That was brutal last night," Marlene says quietly, briefly pressing her shoulder into Sirius's. "With Mulciber, I mean. Evan, too. Sorry, Em." "Thank you," Emmeline replies, equally quiet. Sirius takes a deep breath, then slowly lets it out. "Well, on the bright side, James and Regulus are all healed up, so that's—" He swallows and then clears his throat. "Anyway, Lucius is out of line-up now that Avery and Mulciber are dead." "And it's yours that killed them," Frank points out. He shoots him a curious look. "Malfoy will take that personally." "I don't much care, honestly," Sirius says. "Let him. I'll rip his fucking head off if he tries anything." Marlene snorts. "So much for family loyalty, even extended as it is." "He's no family of mine," Sirius declares. "I don't give a toss if my cousin married him. I have no relation to that prick. It's no less than he deserves, in any case. I don't doubt he encouraged Avery and Mulciber to hunt down Regulus and James." Emmeline gives a mean little smile. "Didn't work out so well for him, did it?" "He's still here, though," Frank grumbles, inclining his head across the room where Lucius is talking to Dolohov and the Yaxley, both who still have Death Eaters alive. Sirius eyes him across the room in disdain, a bitter taste in the back of his throat that makes swallowing difficult. Most mentors stop showing up to watch when their tributes die, as do many sponsors that were planning to support those tributes, and those alone, no one else, completely unwilling to support any other after they're dead. At least a third of the sponsors have ceased to show, now that Mulciber's out. A lot of people expected him to win, and maybe if James and Regulus weren't his competitors, he would have. It's a bit fucked up for Sirius to feel satisfaction about that, even a bit of pride, but it's there anyway. He knows that's sick, in a way, because no part of him wants Regulus and James to have to suffer as they have. It's just that Lucius is a cruel bastard who brings home victors more often than anyone else. One of his tributes doesn't win every year, but it's still a high rate. Lucius has been a mentor since before Sirius was even a tribute himself, but only by a few years. He won his games 7 years before Sirius won his. Lucius is the type of man who relishes in the games, always a mentor of Death Eaters. He's also the man that Narcissa ran off to marry when she left the district with Bellatrix and Tau. There's absolutely no warmth between him and Sirius. "Sirius?" Marlene says, nudging him and nodding at the screen, which gains his immediate focus. James and Regulus are moving through the forest in complete silence. They're going a bit slow because James has a mild limp, which will no doubt clear up by tomorrow. They haven't spoken one word to each other or looked at each other since waking up. Regulus looks blank, and James looks so fucking sad. Sirius wants to hold them both, just wrap them up in his arms and promise them that they're going to be okay, even when that's not a promise he can really keep. He can track their position on the full map layout in the corner of the screen, and whether they know it or not, they're heading in the direction of the cave where Peter, Vanity, Matthias, and Irene are. If they keep going, they might reach it by tomorrow, so long as there are no interruptions. Thankfully, the Death Eaters have no idea what their location is, and they're going in the opposite direction. The arena is one big loop, however, so they all eventually run into each other at some point. Maybe not today, though. The games are a delicate balance, as established, and that comes with the knowledge that the game makers have their thumbs on each and every pulse in that arena. Every choice reflects that, and they decide what tributes may or may not have a bad day. They also decide what tribute needs a break. Sometimes, if they push too hard, they'll end up pushing too far. Survival instincts are far more fragile than most people realize, and under too much strain, they will snap. Being consistently tormented can completely ruin the goal that the game makers are always striving for: make an entertaining game. It's not fun when the players are too broken to play. So it seems that Regulus and James are getting the space to breathe, because not being allowed to breathe will eventually suffocate them, regardless of their skills and motivations. Unfortunately, James and Regulus are not taking this time to do anything entertaining. There is no flirting, no teasing or talking or touching, no stolen glances or further planning. There is absolutely nothing, and Sirius can't blame them. They have to be fucking exhausted. Not only are they dealing with everything they've been through and had to do so far, but they still have to constantly think about surviving in the present. They have grief and pain and anger to deal with, along with basic survival needs like water and food. With everything they're dealing with, that doesn't leave much room for the little love story that everyone is so eager to see. "Day 4, Frank announces with a deep breath. "Let's see how it goes, yeah? Good luck." "It's going to be a long fucking day," Emmeline says with a world-weary sigh. And then they all split off at once. While James and Regulus get their much-needed break, as brief as it may be, Sirius goes to work. Dorcas looks up from her cup when she hears the knock at her door. Frowning, she dips the tea bag a few more times before gently lifting it out and sitting it on the small plate her teacup is resting on. She draws her robe around her and gives a quick glance towards the screen on her way to the door. Regulus and James haven't had much happen to them so far, but it's only midday, so that's subject to change at a moment's notice. Regulus has flung out one of his daggers to catch a bunny as it darted past, which he and James did stop to eat. And James didn't even protest or make one comment. He just sat down against a tree with his head ducked, while Regulus handled the whole process. They haven't been speaking. Dorcas wonders how Sirius is doing today, after the previous night. She's tempted to go check on him, but the thought of leaving her place right now is too much. After learning about Gideon and Fabian, she left her suite and came home instead, which isn't uncommon for those that aren't mentors to do. Most design teams and handlers go off to watch the games at their own leisure, or with her family. Dorcas will go back. She plans to. She just needs a little more time. As much as she wants to be there for Sirius and for Marlene, she has this horrible knowledge she's carrying that she can't tell anyone, and she's working out how to handle it. Sighing, Dorcas checks the belt on her robe one more time, making sure it's tied tight, then opens her door. On the other side is a short, curvy woman with red hair and startlingly bright blue eyes. She's a Hallow, just from the way she's dressed, and her hair is cut into a wavy bob. "Dorcas Meadows?" the woman asks. "Can I help you?" Dorcas replies, eyebrows furrowed. The woman tilts her chin up. "My name is Molly Pruitt. You know my brothers, Fabian and Gideon. They work with you." "Shit," Dorcas thinks. "Yes," Dorcas says softly. "Right, Molly, they mentioned you. It's lovely to meet you. Would you like to come in? I'm having tea, if you'd like to join me." "Please," Molly replies with a fierce gleam in her eye that makes her polite request seem more like an order. Dorcas smiles as warmly as possible and steps back to let Molly in, then takes the lead towards the kitchen. Her back turned to Molly, she lets her face twist through various emotions, then wrangles them all as much as she can. When they reach the kitchen, Dorcas immediately starts making Molly her tea, pouring out the boiling water and slipping the tea back inside before carrying it over. "Sugar's just here," Dorcas murmurs, gesturing to the artistic tin holding the sugar cubes with a small pair of tongs to use to put them in their tea. "Thank you," Molly says, and yet again she speaks in a would-be polite way, except her gaze is sharp on Dorcas's face as she adds some sugar to her tea. Dorcas is immediately uneasy at the moment. "Like I said, it's lovely to meet you, Molly. Fabian and Gideon only had nice things to say about you. I should tell you, your brothers are incredibly talented, and I enjoyed working with them." "Yes, they've always been very good at what they do," Molly frowns slightly, swallowing harshly, and then she looks down at her tea as she stirs it. There's a furrow between her brows, and her fingers are shaking, making the spoon clink against the ceramic. "They've always admired you, Miss Meadows." "Dorcas, please," Dorcas mumbles, trying to ignore the lump that forms in her throat. Molly looks up, holding her gaze. "They've always admired you, Dorcas, and your work. When they found out that they'd be working with you, they were—" Her face softens for the very first time, and she smiles. "They were ecstatic. Wouldn't shut up about it, really. It was their dream, you know. I admired them just as much." Dorcas tells her, and it's true. It's so true. Such brave, brave men. "They taught me more than I could ever explain." "You're close to them, then?" "I did get close to them, yes. I was their friend." "Have you heard from them at all?" Molly asks. Dorcas stirs her own tea with a frown, feigning thoughtfulness, while Molly watches her. "You know, I can't say I have. It's a shame. I'm assuming they went home when they—" "They didn't," Molly interrupts sharply, taking her spoon out and sitting it down with a clink. She doesn't drink her tea. No. She braces her hands on the counter and stares Dorcas right in the eyes. For one thing, they wouldn't. They would see their job through until the end. Gid and Fab always did. But I did check, just to be sure, and they didn't go home." "Oh," Dorcas says, nodding. "Well, maybe we just haven't crossed paths, that's all. I've been home recently, so—" Molly cocks her head, her eyes cold. "But that doesn't make any sense, Dorcas. I know which tributes Fabian and Gideon worked with, because they talked about them to me, and you've surely seen how rough those tributes have it in the games. I know it's hard to watch. Fab and Gid would reach out to check on you, at least, especially if you're their friend." "I've been really busy," Dorcas murmurs calmly, lifting her tea to take a careful sip, trying to calm her racing heart and the pain that twists in her chest. "Gideon and Fabian have been missing for 4 days," Molly announces harshly, her voice a low hiss. Her whole body is shaking, and there are tears forming in her eyes. 4 days, Dorcas, and I haven't heard a word from them. No one has heard a word from them. You are, as far as I know, the last person who interacted with them." "That may be so, but I don't have the answers," Dorcas replies stiffly, inwardly begging her just to let it go. "Gideon left me a voicemail," Molly informs her, reaching in her pocket to pull out her cell. She sits it on the counter and holds Dorcas's gaze as she plays it. "Hi, Molly." Gideon's voice filters through, and just hearing it feels like a blow to Dorcas's chest. "I know the games are about to start soon, so you've got your cell off, but I just—" There's a long beat of silence, just the sound of his breathing, and then he clears his throat. "I just wanted to ring you up to check in and tell you I love you. Fabian and we love you, Molly." Dorcas feels like her heart is lodged the wrong way in her chest, all mashed up. He knew. Gideon knew, or he suspected, at least. She can't work out where it went wrong, or why Riddle ordered the hit, but Gideon somehow saw it coming. That only makes it more tragic. Dorcas takes another sip of her tea for the excuse to clear her throat, working to keep her expression neutral. "That's lovely. I'm not sure what you're implying." "Don't lie to me," Molly bursts out, slamming her hand down on the counter so hard that the teacups rattle. Her eyes are full of tears and fury. "Gideon and Fabian don't ring me up to tell me they love me. They ring me up to tell me stupid jokes and tease me when I complain about my problems. That," she points to her cell, "that was a message to specifically tell me they loved me. And they wouldn't do that for no reason, Dorcas. Something happened to them, and you know what it is." "I don't know anything," Dorcas denies, remaining calm, unwilling to escalate the situation. "Then why have you been talking about them in the past tense, like they're already gone?" Molly rasps, and when she blinks, her tears fall. "Shit," Dorcas thinks once again. She spent the last 2 days mourning Gideon and Fabian, overly aware that they're dead, and this is the worst way for it to manifest. An unconscious shift from is to was, because they already are gone. When Dorcas has been silent for too long, Molly chokes out, "Tell me, please just tell me. They're my family, Dorcas." "I don't know anything," Dorcas repeats, her heart clenching in her chest, but she remains steady. "You're lying." "Molly, I'm not lying. I'm sorry about your brothers, all right? I really am, but I don't know anything." "Yes, you do," Molly snaps, and with that, She grabs her teacup and proceeds to launch its contents right at her. Dorcas flings herself back with a shriek because the tea scalds her skin. She crashes into her pantry door, hands flying up to cradle her face, cheeks burning. Due to this, she doesn't see Molly coming, so she's not at all prepared to be slammed back into the door, Molly's forearm pressing into her throat. This is when Dorcas learns that she can throw a punch. It's not just a theory now, proven by the way Molly stumbles back with a groan from the force of Dorcas hitting her in the face. Even still, Molly is a woman scorned, driven by grief and the need for answers as well as closure. So she just keeps right on coming. In seconds, she's flinging herself forward to wrap both hands around Dorcas's throat, throwing her to the floor. Gasping for air, Dorcas slams at Molly's arms as she climbs on top, squeezing at her throat until Dorcas is choking. The lack of air makes her brain scream, and no matter how hard she fights, Molly just holds her down until, abruptly, she lets go. "Tell me," Molly bellows, glaring down at her with tears streaming from her eyes. "Tell me, or I swear I'll kill you." "Please," Dorcas croaks. Molly's face twists, and she dives for Dorcas's neck again, audibly weeping. "Just tell me! Please, they're dead." Dorcas chokes out on a wheeze, and Molly's hands instantly go slack around her throat. Dorcas sucks in deep, painful breaths as her chest is heaving. Molly looks stricken, her face sagging with immediate sorrow and grief. She shakes her head, making a small noise, and then she slumps right off of Dorcas to scoot back against the cabinets beneath the sink. In seconds, Molly is sobbing as she covers her face with both hands. Slowly, Dorcas sits up, pressing her fingers to her tender throat, still shaking from the assault. Her heart is racing, and terror has cold hands wrapped around her spine. She's never been so close to, well, anything like that, honestly. Violence has only ever existed to her in theory, and she's not at all prepared for how it feels in reality. It's more painful than she was expecting. Her hand throbs from where she hit Molly, and her head is fucking pounding. It hurts to swallow, and her throat is sore from the inside out. And yet, Dorcas thinks the one in the most pain right now is Molly. She's sobbing like she's dying. Just these horrible, raw sounds of pure agony. This is only part of what Dorcas was trying to save her from, and it makes her heart ache. "I'm sorry," Dorcas rasps as she shuffles over and carefully wraps her arms around her. Molly instantly folds over into her arms, weeping into her shoulder. "I'm so sorry, Molly." No, Molly moans. "No, it isn't true. Please tell me it isn't true. Not them. Please, no." "I'm sorry," Dorcas says again, because that's all she can really say. They were such good men, brave, honorable men. They knew the risks, and they still chose to do the right thing. I know it's not fair, Molly. I'm sorry. Molly lifts her head slowly, sniffling. "Risks? What risks?" Dorcas grimaces. "They wouldn't want you involved. It isn't safe. Do you understand? Don't keep pushing. Just let it go, please." "My brothers are dead," Molly declares, and her voice cracks. Again, tears well up in her eyes, but there's a lot of anger and grief within them as well. "If you think I'm going to stop now, then you know nothing. What risks?" Dorcas takes a deep breath, wincing at the pain it causes. Well, Molly is in it now, isn't she? Frankly, Dorcas doesn't see any other way around this, and all she can do is send a mental apology to Gideon and Fabian, who would have wanted their sister safe. But it's too late for that. "All right, let's get up so I can clean up the glass all over my floor, take care of my face and throat. Then I'll tell you about the Order of the Phoenix." Sirius heaves a sigh of relief as he steps through the door of the suite. It has indeed been a long fucking day. He spent it doing exactly what he expected he would have to, smoothing over Regulus's reaction after Evan died. Most people seemed appeased by Sirius saying it was a response to his grief and the message was intended as a solidarity thing. But because of that and the lack of any interaction between him and James, the support for him has waned. Even James is sort of disappointing people at this point, because he's not flirting with Regulus like he was before. He's not talking at all. Sirius's stomach tangles into knots with the thought. A quiet James is a cause for concern, because James is rarely quiet. Of course, he has his quiet moments, like when he's really invested in a book, or when he's briefly distracted by something shiny, or those random times when he'd get so deep in thought about something that he just falls silent because he's so focused. In general, though, James isn't really a quiet person. It's just not a good sign. Sirius is worried that neither of them are going to manage to bounce back from what's happened so far, and that's unfortunately unacceptable, because there's still so much they have to do. The games aren't over yet, so giving up is not an option for neither of them. Thankfully, there's been a break. Regulus and James have been traveling all day, but they're taking their time, seeming to embrace the chance to just adjust. A small breath of air in all this shit, and Sirius can't blame them for how they're using it. Sometimes interacting with people is hard when your life is falling apart on all sides, and it doesn't matter who the person is. It can be someone you grew up with, or even the man you love, and it's still fucking impossible. Sirius understands. As for Sirius, despite all the sweet talking and the work he's put in today, he's had something of a break himself. Not having to see James and Regulus fight for their lives or come within inches of death has worked wonders on his nerves. It's his little breath of air after suffocating, one he desperately needed. He's still fucking terrified at all times, but the break has left him basking in the lack of stress too high to handle. The games are still on, of course, but there's not much happening. No one has died, and the game makers are wrapping the day up sooner than normal, dropping the temperature before the sun even sets. It forces the Death Eaters to go back to the river, Juniper to dig herself a hole, and the others to settle into their cave. Regulus and James didn't find a cave this time, so they're camping outside next to a big boulder. It's mostly secluded, but it means they won't be able to light a fire through the night for very long without risking someone or something finding them, which forces them to huddle for warmth. Still, it could be a lot worse, and they're so close to the allies that are still hoping for James's return. Sirius is surprised to see the screen off when he comes inside, because usually Remus is waiting for him to watch. He can hear distant voices from the kitchen, so he follows it warily. "There he is," Pandora says warmly, as soon as he comes in. She breaks out into a smile and pushes away from the counter, where she and Remus seem to be in the middle of making a pan of brownies. Pandora moves over and immediately wraps Sirius into a tight hug. "Been waiting for you." "Been missing you," Sirius replies softly, hugging her back as he flicks his gaze to the hologram screen in the corner of the room. Pandora has it set up for them, he's assuming, so they don't have to watch in the sitting room. On it, James and Regulus are passing water back and forth in complete silence while getting ready to settle in. Sirius rips his gaze away and leans back to look at Pandora. "How's your father?" Pandora presses her lips into a thin line. Not doing well, honestly. He insists he'll be fine, though, so he kicked me out and told me to get back to work. He knows how worried I've been for you." "I'm sorry, Pandora," Sirius whispers, swallowing thickly. Her father is very sick and has been since the previous year. She would usually stay with Sirius during the games full time, otherwise, but he knows how important it was for her to go back to check on him. "No," Pandora assures him. The caretaker is handling him just fine. I'm a handler for you, and for a tribute, so I should be here." Sirius frowns. "If you need to—" "Stop, Sirius. I want to be here. It's really fine," Pandora says with a heavy sigh. "Well, if it makes you feel better, I'm glad you were here," Sirius declares sincerely, dipping in to kiss her cheek. "Please," and she smiles. Pandora beams at him. "Remus is making me brownies for my efforts and my woes." "Is he now?" Sirius flicks his gaze over to Remus, who gives him a tiny smile as he stirs brownie batter. "I'm helping," Pandora adds cheerfully. Remus shakes his head behind her back, but there is no humor in his eyes. Sirius chuckles. "I'll help too." So that's what they do. They all come together to make a pan of brownies, and they all clean up the dishes they use, and they all eat warm brownies with a scoop of ice cream when they're ready. Sirius doesn't finish his plate because he's painfully, viscerally aware that Regulus and James are currently going without such luxury at the moment. In fact, throughout all of this, James and Regulus show up on the screen a few times. Not very often because they're not being entertaining, and they're always just sitting in silence. Sirius stares at his brownie and ice cream and wishes with all that he has in him that he could just give it to them. So yeah, his appetite practically vanishes, and he doesn't finish it. Still, Sirius feels his chest ache and also go warm with the thought of James and Regulus sort of being here with him right now, even if they don't know it. They're as safe as they'll ever get in the arena, at least for now, and so Sirius feels like he can breathe easier. Of course, them being on a screen isn't really them being here, but it's better than nothing. If they were here, though, Sirius would nudge Regulus once, twice, and then a third time until he finally looked over with an exasperated sigh. Sirius would cross his eyes and wiggle his eyebrows to make Regulus smile, like he used to when they were children, and Regulus would try so hard to fight it, but a smile would spread across his face anyway. And James? Oh, James would be the heart and soul of all the joy and laughter they would all be having if he was here. A grin on his face, warmth in his voice, bouncing around and making them all crack up and tease each other, tugging on one of Regulus's curls like he used to do when they were young, when he thought Sirius didn't notice, and it would make Regulus scowl instead of blush the way he did when he was a child. Chattering away to Remus, entertaining him with endless little fun facts, getting Remus comfortable with opening up one warm laugh at a time. Teasing Pandora, stealing her brownie when she's not looking, pretending he's innocent when she squints at him suspiciously, breathing in perfect sync with Sirius, because they're always doing that, always breathing at the same time. Even now, every time James inhales and exhales on the screen, Sirius matches him. It's when he starts cleaning up with Pandora and Remus that it happens. He's wrapping the brownies individually so they can just grab them and eat them whenever they like, and also so Pandora and Remus can wash the pan. He's fighting with the thin plastic wrap when he sees Regulus hold up his finger, indicating for James to give him a minute before they actually curl up under the blanket together. Their camp is already set up. They have a place to make a quick fire if they get too cold, all the tools within reach and ready. They've had water, but they'll need to refill it tomorrow when they find a source for it. They've had food, the rabbit earlier, and also the berries that James had picked for them. So they're safe, and they've had a relatively calm day compared to all the ones before it. Regulus is clearly leaving to take a walk around and make sure they're as secluded as he can get. Just one last check that he takes seriously, because he has his dagger in hand. It comes from a sense of paranoia, Sirius knows. If it'll help him actually manage to sleep tonight, Sirius can't begrudge him that. It's clearly cold, though, because Regulus's breath billows out in front of him in a white cloud as he moves silently. The camera cuts to James suddenly, who has his head tilted back as he looks up at the stars, whispering, "Sirius, I hope you had a better day than I did." At the sound of James's voice, the kitchen goes silent. Sirius quickly wraps the last brownie and gives James his undivided attention, his heart clenching in his chest. It's, well, I don't even know if you're seeing this, if they're showing it to you, but James swallows thickly and blinks rapidly up at the sky. I miss you, you know? Maybe it's selfish of me, but I wish you were here. Not here, just here to talk to, I guess. I really wish... He halts, clearing his throat, and then his voice gets softer. Do you remember all the things I said to you? All of it was true. You have to know that, but I feel like a hypocrite because it's so much heavier than I could have ever imagined. I get it now. Sirius is pretty sure his heart breaks. He has to brace his hands on the counter to keep his legs from buckling, because he knows what James is saying, what he isn't saying more accurately. How hard all this is, how heavy it weighs on you. He gets it now. Sirius can't think of anything more tragic. James releases a weak laugh, sniffling. Yeah, I get it now. You're the strongest person I've ever known, Sirius, and I'm so fucking sorry you had to be. You say, you've always said you admire me, but you really don't know how much I've always admired you, especially now. He takes a deep breath, slowly letting it out. But it's going to be okay. It will be. I'm still in this, all right? The plan is still the same. I was just having it a little rough, but I'll keep trying. I'm not giving up. Neither is he. We're still in this. We're still here. Sirius's eyes flutter shut, those words washing over him like a balm to his soul. It's like being gently electrocuted, tenderly shocked awake, so much purpose and relief making something inside him vibrate. He feels driven and also soothed. When his eyes peel open again, James is smiling more sincerely. I really, really hope you've eaten something today. Something like so good, like mouth-wateringly good, James says, then groans quietly. I'm thinking pornographic thoughts about cake right now, and you can't judge me for it, because I have every right. Did you see what I had today? Fucking rabbit. Sirius doesn't realize he's crying until a wet laugh bursts out of him, a little choked and hitched, his shoulders bowing in as he raises the back of his wrist to his mouth. It's so strange how he suddenly becomes aware of the tears spilling out of his eyes, despite the fact that this might be the best he's felt in days. Acceptable tears. James always makes things better. Just a cute little bunny going about his day, James says solemnly, heaving a sigh. It's all right, though. It's... James, who the fuck are you talking to? Regulus snaps in a low hiss, abruptly stepping around the boulder. James jolts, hand flying up to his chest. Fuck, Regulus, don't do that. You nearly scared the piss out of me. Well, if you were more alert, that wouldn't happen, Regulus says coldly. Why are you talking? Shut up. If you must know, James mutters, I was talking to Sirius. Regulus arches an eyebrow. About? Cake mostly, James mumbles sheepishly. Cake, Regulus repeats flatly. James clears his throat. I could really go for some cake right now. What about you? Stop talking, James, Regulus says sharply, moving over to snatch up the blanket so he can climb underneath it. Shit, Reg, you're freezing. Come here, love. Don't touch me. A bit fucking difficult to do when we're cuddling, you utter bastard. Stop being stubborn and ow! Hey, watch it! You watch it. Then where do I put my hands? James complains, the mounds of their bodies shifting under the blanket, as Regulus visibly struggles not to be close to James, even while needing to be close to James to be warm. Regulus huffs, Stuff them down your pants for all I care. There is a pause. Then James says, Or I could. Don't, Regulus snaps. I'm just saying, maybe you'd appreciate it if I put them down yours instead, James teases. Another word out of you, and I'll put my hands down yours just to rip your fucking cock off, Regulus hisses, then makes a low noise of fury as he essentially burrows himself in as close to James as he can get, clearly furious about his circumstances. James falls silent at the threat, as any smart man would, but he seems mostly appeased by the fact that he's holding Regulus now. Sirius exhales softly in relief, because, yeah, they're still in this. They're still here. They're still trying. Somehow they're going to bounce back and keep going, and this is the first step. They remain quiet, and Sirius watches his brother fall asleep slowly, fitfully, in his best friend's arms. For now, they're safe, and that's enough. It's not long before the camera circles through all the other tributes and Rita comes on the screen. Pandora immediately moves over to blip out the hologram, releasing a deep breath as she turns with a small smile. All right? Pandora asks him. Yeah, Sirius whispers, surprised to find that, for tonight, it's mostly true. Yeah, I'm all right. Pandora nods. Good. Well, I'm in a desperate need of a shower and some sleep. The brownies are good, Remus, thank you. Sirius, I'll see you in the morning, yeah? Of course, Sirius says. Good night, Pandora, Remus murmurs, as Pandora gathers her hologram projector and returns the sentiments before leaving the room with a wave. Sirius breathes for a little bit, then turns around to find Remus leaning up against the counter behind him, his hands resting by his hips, leaving the target of his torso wide open. Sirius attacks it. In the least violent way possible, Sirius slams into Remus's chest and practically melts against him with a deep exhale, his eyes sinking shut. Remus needs no time to catch up. He has his arms around Sirius in seconds, holding him like he was born to. For a long time, they just hold on and breathe. Sirius doesn't cry. He feels good, as good as he can feel in this situation. He knows it won't last, and he wants to make the most of it. Just for right now, for tonight. He has relief and hope coursing through him, and he wants to hold on to the feeling. He wants to hold on to Remus and be held in return, and he lets it happen. Lets himself have it. "Hi," Remus whispers. "Hi," Sirius whispers back. "Good?" Remus asks, his lips moving against Sirius's temple as he speaks. "How do you always know?" Sirius whispers, tilting his face closer, hoping to feel more of Remus's mouth. He pressed kisses to his temple and cheek last time, and Sirius wants it again. He wants that, and more. "I'm assuming you're essentially granting yourself the things you want because you're in mildly better spirits," Remus explains, because he's so smart, and he has Sirius all figured out already. How he managed to do this, Sirius doesn't know. "Pretty much," Sirius admits, "because now is the best time. There's no guilt for right now, no stress. Maybe it makes him weak, but he wants to bask in it as much as he can. Or maybe that just makes him human. Sometimes he forgets that he is. Because Remus always, always knows." He gently presses kisses down the side of Sirius's face. Sirius's breath hitches helplessly, his heart thumping heavily in his chest, his entire body fully just tingling by the time Remus's lips graze his jaw. Remus pulls back slowly, looking at him, studying him. Sirius sees his eyes flicker down to his mouth, then right back up. Sirius sways forward like a worm on a hook. Remus's lips switch. "Do you need to brush your teeth?" Remus teases, lifting his hand to gently card it through Sirius's hair as he leans in. "Shut up, I panicked, all right?" Sirius mumbles, a little breathless because of Remus's proximity. Are you going to kiss me? Is that allowed?" "Is that—" Remus chokes on a laugh and leans back to stare at him, like he's something amazing. "Sirius, what? What does that even mean? Is that allowed?" It has just hit me very blatantly that this was maybe a little ridiculous of me to say. A bit? But in defense, I temporarily forgot that it's quite literally not allowed for you, considering your position, but also really acceptable while you're in the suite, should you so wish. Sirius continues to explain in a ramble. Not that you have to, obviously, but if that was something you wanted to do, then of course you should. You could. Serious, Remus says, amused. I only mean it's your choice to do if you want, or not if you don't. I'm not saying, well, you have that freedom here, with anyone. Sirius pauses briefly. Wait. Remus tucks his lips in. Yes, do go on. I would love to hear how you talk yourself around that one. Sirius says, frowning. Well, waiting, Remus reminds him. Sirius frowns harder. I don't like it. No? Remus arches an eyebrow. So my freedom doesn't extend past the borders of what you like. I can only live in the perimeters of what pleases you. Is that it? No, of course not. You can do whatever you want, as I've said many times before, Sirius mutters. But I should tell you, if you kiss anyone else other than me, I'm going to be terribly jealous. Remus's eyebrows fly up. Oh, just right to it. No talking around that one at all. I barely even got to fuck with you. I'm learning. I'm oddly proud. Is that... Sirius pauses, chewing on the inside of his lip. Then he blows out a deep breath. Is it too much? To be that way when this is... He takes another second and feels his eyebrows tugged together. To be honest, I don't even know what this is. What we are. What we are? Remus echoes, his voice softening. I'd say What we are is tragically inevitable and woefully pointless. Sirius feels like he was just struck, like Remus just struck him. Well, shit, that hurt more than he was expecting. Oh, he's in deep, isn't he? Pointless. We're pointless? Reality has never felt the need to be kind, Remus says gently, looking so very sad. Sirius, we are irrefutably barreling at full speed towards something, but we can't get anywhere. We'll go nowhere. Tell me you know that. I don't know that, Sirius croaks. Remus sighs. This is my life, Sirius. My servitude to the Hallow that's my future. I can't offer you anything else, and I won't try to pretend otherwise. In less than a week, you'll leave the Hallow to go home, and I'll still be here. I did know that, Sirius confesses, even if he hasn't really allowed himself to think about it. He's had enough to be fucking upset about, hasn't he? All that we do here, it means something. Our unavoidable conclusion doesn't take away from that, Remus murmurs, pulling his hand back to cup Sirius's cheek. We are something, but we can't be everything. I do wish that we could be, or I wish we could at least try. If it's easier to be nothing because we can't be everything, then I understand. Sirius breathes for a moment, then says, I don't think I can be nothing with you. Is that so? Remus asks, and it's so soft it's nearly a croon. I feel too much, Sirius confesses in a whisper. He exhales shakily. I have to come back every year, you know? I can bribe the right people to get you assigned to my suite every year, Remus, if that's something you'd want. Remus hesitates for a long moment, lips parting, and then he looks pained. I can't ask for that, or even expect it. Sirius, you can have a life, one I can't give you. You can have someone who doesn't already belong to other forces out of our control, someone you can see more than a few weeks out of the year. I can't give you everything, but someone else can. I take being something with you over being everything with anyone else, Sirius tells him. Oh, now why would you say that? Remus breathes out, like he's just been punched. It's just the truth, Sirius says softly. I told you to warn me, Remus whispers, then slips his hand further down to cradle Sirius's jaw, the only warning he gives before he dips in and kisses him. Just like that, Remus kisses him. It's tentative, a little slow, not deep at all. He's being careful, and Sirius's mind has gone blank. All thoughts come to a screeching halt, and he's just frozen in place, not doing anything. He can't help it, because Remus is kissing him. Every cell in his body is vibrating at a frequency that's a little concerning, actually, as if he's about to spontaneously combust on the spot. His nerves are pinging all at once, lighting up and flooding him with an overwhelming sense of everything. Sirius doesn't kiss him back, mostly because the whole world seems to have stopped for a moment, and he hasn't the faintest fucking idea what he's meant to do with that. The last time he kissed anyone, or was kissed by anyone, was 10 years ago. He doesn't remember if it felt like this. He doesn't really remember it at all, because his memory is shit. Remus pulls away carefully, and Sirius doesn't remember closing his eyes, but he opens them now to see Remus staring at him cautiously. Should I not have done that? No, Sirius croaks. He releases a sharp breath, not entirely sure if there's enough oxygen getting to his brain at the moment. He's a little worried he's going to pass out here in a second. If you like, you could do it again. Apparently, Remus would like, because he does it again after only one pause. Just ducks back in and kisses him a second time, as gentle as the first. Sirius is a bit more prepared for this one, so he tilts his face up into it, letting it wash over him how much he likes it. Oh, but he really likes it. Remus's lips are soft, and he slides one hand down from Sirius's cheek to cup the side of his neck, warm fingers brushing over very sensitive skin. Vaguely, Sirius wonders if Remus can feel the harsh fluttering at the pulse in his throat. His heart is racing. Remus doesn't pull away this time, and Sirius finally kisses him back, still ridiculously pliant, yet helplessly curious for more. There's a moment where it's just the tender brush of mouth, warm pressure pushing in and then alleviating before coming right back. It's almost a tease, and Sirius sways eagerly into the kiss, one hand reaching out mindlessly to settle on Remus's side. He keeps his touch light, trying so very hard not to do anything that he shouldn't. Then Remus's hand that's still on his cheek brushes back into his hair, and there is the first hint of tongue, just a small, hot swipe along Sirius's bottom lip, and all of Sirius's thoughts of being careful promptly evaporate on the spot. His hand clamps down on Remus's side, fingers digging in slightly as he helplessly rocks forward, seeking more. This seems to please Remus, because he releases a quiet hum of approval against Sirius's mouth and kisses him deeper, now with the added bonus of tongue that Sirius is very much in favor of. Gradually, Remus goes from kissing him to really kissing him, and Sirius can't actually describe the difference between the two, but there is a shift. There's more tongue, for one thing, and the whole mood has changed. It's instinctive, the way they're both coming closer together, drawn in naturally as the world around them falls away, the cause behind every bit of distance they've adhered to within one another. It's gone, just like that, and Sirius isn't sad to see it go in the least. It's like something in Sirius just snaps, or maybe it clicks into place, or maybe it's both. A break that has to be reset, a boundary shattering just to be built anew somewhere else. Whatever it is, he's shaking all over and unable to stop himself from curling into Remus, sliding trembling hands up to his chest to wrap arms around his shoulders, pressing them as close together as they can get. Remus responds in kind, kissing him harder, deeper, with more urgency. But it slows again, with effort, mostly Remus because Sirius is currently gone on all levels. Remus pulls away, letting them calm as he rests their foreheads together. Yeah, Sirius is never coming back from this. He's ruined. All that worrying that it'd be him, and it turns out to be Remus. If anyone is in shambles, it's Sirius, just from one kiss, one taste. Sirius's eyes flutter open so he can look at Remus, and he thinks, is this too soon to be sure I love you? What we are, Remus pulls back slightly and slides his hand forward to cup Sirius's jaw, gently dragging his thumb over Sirius's bottom lip. What we are is something. We're something, Sirius. As long as we're not nothing, Sirius whispers. No, never that, Remus whispers back, reassuring him, and he lets Sirius tuck him back into his arms. In silence, they lean into each other and hold on. It's a long time before they let go.